You know what? I talked about new intro music, and too bad. We're sticking with what works tonight. I actually have a new one, but I've got to get the karaoke words removed.
All right.
Otherwise, because we're nationwide for my 4 fans that I pay a monthly subscription to. How are you doing?
I'm good.
You're,
Probably so off the wall, but I'm so excited that our football player from Cincinnati is waking
that's
up. Just I heard that this afternoon, and he asked what the score was, and I thought, oh,
unbelievable.
man,
That
that was awesome.
that the outpouring. Those are the kind of things that just make you feel good about. You kind of get some reborn hope, because that was my son was at that game and just said you could hear a pin drop. It was unbelievable, and we were watching. It was going to be a great one of the matchups of the year. I know that your husband's not a big fan of it, but you love to watch football, correct, Peggy? Don't you have a 49er tattoo on your
After
right shoulder?
34 years of marriage, I'm actually finally enjoying watching it. So I was there watching it with him when that happened. So
Yeah,
I'm
that
so
was a
happy
crazy night.
that looks really good for him. So great.
So our guest, I'm going to bring Ken in, and I'll put Ken. Ken, welcome, Ken Middleton.
What up? How are you?
In the middle.
Yeah.
Okay, so Ken, you're down. Well, Peggy's out in she's getting 4 feet of snow as we speak.
Oh, is it snowing there?
California is going off into the ocean right now.
They're flooding because all you've done is complain about drought the whole.
I know.
So now you're bitching about not having enough umbrellas. And Ken, you're in the south, the southeast, right?
Yeah, it was like 60 degrees today, Atlanta.
That's great. Okay.
Yeah.
And the two colors of Cincinnati at this time of year are gray and brown. That's it.
That's it.
So it's just it's a depressing. I'd rather have snow or sun, one of the two. So both of you are on my list. But I met Ken just through some of the posts, and he's got a book out or coming out called Bamboozled, which I made fun of him the other day because there's only a limited number of names that have the catchphrase in. And I saw Bamboozled, and it was like, why didn't I think of that one? It just ticks me off. And Ken found it. I love it. But I met Ken on Instagram, and then I found out that Ken and Peggy have been, I guess, through LinkedIn, and some of those have had some contact.
Yeah. I was excited when I saw that you had contacted him because I'm a fan.
We solved some pretty great problems the other day. In fact, the things that we talked about alcohol being, is it really the problem? And I want to go into a little bit more with that, Ken. But I want to open up. You've got the book coming out, but what is your story? How did you go I want to know where you were, what the problem was, and how you got to where you are today, and then about your book and what you're doing.
Yeah. So thanks for having me, Jeff, Peggy. Nice. So fantastic to meet you as well. The book Bamboozled honestly came from the way I got to alcohol consciousness, right? So you think about my story, and we'll talk more about the philosophy of the book. But honestly, when I decided to give up alcohol, it wasn't because I felt like I had a problem with alcohol. And that's the huge premise of the book. I didn't hit rock bottom. I didn't live a bad life. Honestly, I thought my life was amazing. And I said one of the things that made it so hard to give up alcohol because it was so fantastic with it. So like most people, my story is alcohol was one of my best friends. That's why my Medium publication, Alcohol Is Not Your Friend, is the adverse of that, because it was that thing that when I discovered it at 19 years old in college, it almost made everything that I wanted to happen. So all the things that I wanted to be, or the person I wanted to become, alcohol allowed me to do that. So it was being comfortable in social anxious situations that sometimes I had a lot of anxiety in. It was being able to speak to the opposite sex and get girls to like me and be the cool guy and be the guy's guy, and all the things that were challenging before at 19 years old, because I was a normal 19-year-old in an unusual situation. So nothing there. But the alcohol made me come out of my shell. Now, fast forward to me getting a job in sales. The college environment is the biggest thing ever when it comes to drinking. Sales is probably the second biggest environment ever when it comes to alcohol. And my drinking just increased exponentially, because it became not only something that I did for fun, but became part of what I was supposed to do for my job. And as we all know, when you think about your drinking problem, it's all relative. So you think about how much you drink, and you think about how much people around you drink, and everyone around me was drinking the same amount I was. So as long as everyone else is drinking, and my boss and my VP are all drinking in the same capacity or even more, then I clearly don't have a problem. So when I decided to leave my company in 2017 to explore my entrepreneurship endeavors, I wasn't in any way thinking about not drinking. I was just doing my job, and I was in sales, staffing. So I wanted to start my own staffing company. I did it for about 18 months. And after 18 months, I had moved in with my girlfriend then, now wife, and I just wasn't successful. It was 18 months of 80 to 90-hour weeks. I was doing everything in my power to be successful, and I was making some money, but I just wasn't making enough money that I thought made sense for the 80 to 90 hours a week that I was working. So I said, okay, I always knew that alcohol didn't allow me to be 100% every day. I didn't think I had a problem. I didn't think it was killing me or hurting me or causing my life to be terrible, because I was doing fairly well by most standards. But I knew that I wasn't at 100% the next day after I drink. And I always said, look, my 70, 80% is good as other people's 100%. So I'd be okay. But it wasn't, clearly, because I wasn't successful. And I said, I didn't want to go back to corporate America before I could say I had unequivocally done everything to be successful and live this entrepreneurship dream. And I said, I know alcohol has not allowed me to do that. So let's try 90 days to see how it works. Fortunately, my wife said, I'll do it with you. And I just said, I'm just not going to drink, and I'm just going to see what happens after 90 days. And, a week passed, 2 weeks passed, and all of a sudden I'm getting this mental clarity, and I'm starting to feel better. And I had done a 90-day stint before in the past for various reasons, but this was the first time that I felt like I was intentional about it. When I say intentional, it was around really pushing myself to cognitively be more aware. And because, I'm trying to be great at my job. So really pushing myself to maximize what I'm doing with my time. And I made more money.
What's interesting though, Ken, is that a couple of things you said with alcohol. When I started in my sales job, I don't know if I believed this or if I actually did, but alcohol made me, I thought I was more effective because it allowed me to unwind all the crap of the day. And then in the morning, I felt like I was starting. So there was a point when alcohol was I probably believed it wrong, but I believed it to be a benefit for a long time. And then it got to the point, it allowed me to socialize. It allowed me to do the things where I met more contacts. It allowed me to do the things to improve my ability to be a sales guy, whatever. Yeah. And then it started to take.
Absolutely.
And it started it reversed course on me.
And I'll tell you, Jeff, you're dead on. So it wasn't alcohol alcohol allowed me to be a better salesperson. But I think a good analogy would be like steroids. Steroids allow you to run faster. It allows you to play a sport better, but you are making a trade-off when you decide to use steroids at a younger age versus someone who takes the longer path and doesn't use steroids. Great point. That is what alcohol is. It allows you to do some things easier. But if you do it without alcohol, the path is going to be more challenging, but you're going to get way further. And especially as you age, the negative effects become way worse. And that is why I have
I absolutely love that. I'm a social worker, so I, really, of course, I was not a very good social worker for a while, just because I had a little bit of cognitive dissonance around the fact that I was teaching people how to work with families with addiction and had my own, right? But I was actually a very late drinker.
And you were using steroids a lot as well.
Yeah, I was using
tough steroids. Combination.
Yeah. Keep going, Ken, because I'm loving your story.
No, well, I was just going to say that I was close to the end. So when I gave up alcohol, I made more money in those 3 months after I gave up alcohol in the previous 9 months, like like exponentially more money. So I knew there was something there. I knew there was something there. And so I decided to go longer and kept exploring and kept like really, like I said, I was intentional this time. Before it was like in happenstance, it was like a dry January, something that I
Right.
did knowing that I was going to drink again. This was I was intentional to see how much I could grow without alcohol. And because I saw the growth, I said, there's no way I'll go back. And that's why I wrote Bamboozle, because Bamboozle is not about asking people not to drink. I mean, if you want to drink, you can drink. But what I wasn't aware of was the trade-offs I was making because I was drinking. And once I started getting into the Quit Lit and reading Annie Grace and those books, I started to learn and say, you know what? My life can be okay with alcohol, but it can be so much better
Yeah.
without it.
Right.
And that's how I want to live.
Yeah,
Well,
I love that.
That was the trade-off. If you know, for me, if the trade-off was just that I'm gonna be able to work without alcohol, I didn't see enough of a benefit because that was good. I saw it as a deterrent. I didn't want to lose the social things I gained, what I thought. So my problem is that I didn't believe I would be. It sounded like you had to taste success, and you went, "Hey, wait a minute. There's a benefit other than just not having a hangover, whatever whatever your things are. That you had to taste a benefit." And I don't know that I believe there was one.
I think
until
the
I was,
intentionality is
Yeah.
really, really the crux of what Ken's talking about, because you can do dry January. You can do it every year. And then sometimes you might binge drink before the 31 days, or you might binge drink after. And so, I mean, I'm doing an article on dry January. I'm not saying that people shouldn't try it, but what I love about what you're saying is the intentionality. Like, what is different about me? What's different about Ken without alcohol? It's just a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer when the cells in your brain are actually healing and regenerating, and you can think clearer and you can figure stuff out. I'm amazed. You're a young dude, and I could probably be your grandmother. However,
you're not that much older than me.
however, I can't believe the mental clarity I have. Like,
Exactly.
I spent all day today doing a curriculum project for the university, and I was just thinking that this morning. I'm so glad that you're on here tonight, because I was just thinking this morning, there is no freaking way I could even figure it out. I just got by. And like you, I was very successful at my job. I got teacher of the year, but I went home and drank a bottle of wine. So keep going. I'd love to hear more.
I mean, Peggy, you hit the nail on the head. That is it though, right? That is what I tell people when it comes to making the decision to not drink. And like I said, your life could be okay if you decide to drink. Now, I will say, and we'll maybe get into this a little later, at a certain age, you definitely should stop drinking, because if
Mhm.
you don't, the negative effects become exponential and they compound. And
Mhm.
and you're really putting yourself at a lot of health risk. But when I think of quality of life for an individual, by getting rid of alcohol and then the ceiling that you have, I use this term. I say alcohol is a great governor. So what I mean by that is a governor, just like on a UPS truck or a school bus, that it's not supposed to only go so fast. Alcohol does that for your life, especially cognition wise. Like you can't process hard things. Like
Mhm.
I wrote this article. I said alcohol and hard thinking doesn't mix. Like you're not doing trigonometry or calculus. Like there's no way. Like you can do easy stuff, you can do rudimentary stuff, you can do stuff that you've done for a long time. But if you want to really have the ability to challenge yourself and think
Mhm.
holistically, alcohol doesn't allow you to do that. And as you get older, it becomes worse. And so that's why I tell people, if you want to raise your game and if you want to give yourself the chance to become someone, and I always use the term, build the best version of yourself,
Yeah.
get rid of alcohol and you'll give yourself that opportunity.
Well, I just felt so much the self defeatist where I came home after a day of when I had to fill out sales reports, and nothing would be better than to sit down with alcohol. And it got after a beer and a half, I just said, I'll do this in the morning. The morning I woke up and I was shaking and sweating, and there's no way I could even hold a cup of coffee without. So yeah, there was a ton of that destruction that I probably wasn't even aware of.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's just something that people just do not understand. So to your point, I tell people the concept of not drinking gives you the chance to then build the best version of yourself. And I use this term called the inverted triangle. And Jeff, I think you and I talked about it the other day, right? So what the inverted triangle is, Peggy, is so important. It is, for a lot of people, it is what is at the base that holds you back from being successful. For some people, it might be food. For other people, it might be the opposite sex. For some people, for a lot of people, it's alcohol. For me, it was alcohol. That was the thing, right? So my ability to control my drinking, or what some people will call sobriety, what I call alcohol consciousness, like by my ability to control that, then I'm able to look at the other aspects of my life and improve them. So I tell people all the time, I don't consider myself a sober coach expert. I'm not an addiction expert. I'm definitely not. Like, if you have a physical dependence on alcohol, a physiological change that makes you have to drink, I've never experienced that. I don't think I'm the best qualified person to tell you. However, I consider myself a wellness advocate. And if you're someone that wants to understand how do you do things that are going to make your life healthy and the quality of your life better. So for me, I stopped drinking alcohol. That was the first part of my inverted triangle. Then I went to looking at my health, my exercise, my eating. Then I looked at my sleep. Then I looked at meditation, and I was able to build. So there you have the inverted triangle here, and it shows that you're building a base of something, or you're building a life. And if you take that triangle away, for me, everything else will implode and crumble in it. So for me, the alcohol was the beginning of me looking at my health and wellness. And then I added the other aspects, and it allowed me to become a more holistic person. And if I didn't stop drinking, then there's no way I would start that journey to where I am today.
It was a total block, because the alcohol the drinking kept me from in the morning going for a walk or getting on the bike or doing something, which would have given me momentum to go to, it would have snowballed in the right direction. And the drinking kept me from even hitting to get started. That roadblock was that little whatever kept the whole damn thing from potential from happening.
No doubt.
Hey, Ken, what's the biggest thing that surprised you about putting the bottle down?
I think that it was as easy as it was in some ways, right? And what I mean by that is there's I want to say Jack Canfield says 100% is easy, 99% is a bitch. And that is just so true. And I had to learn that about myself. It's so much easier to abstain 100% than it is to try to moderate. Some people try to moderate and drink. I just don't have that capacity. So for me, if I was able to give it up 100%, then it wasn't that hard. It was like, now I will tell you, there was a 6-month period that I got to a fork in the road, and my wife and I were in the same bucket, where I felt like, man, I could really use a glass of wine right now. Or am I going to give up alcohol forever? Like, is that really what I want to do? And after that 6-month period, I was like, man, my life is so much better after this 6 months that I really can't see myself going back. And having known that I cannot moderate, that I just said I wouldn't do it. So not that it was easy, but it was easier than what I expected, based on the fact that I was willing to give it up completely, as opposed to trying to to drink a little bit less.
It really is, because when you think about it, if you're drinking, you're spending a third of your life at least thinking about drinking, getting drink, buying it, and then suffering, because you don't feel good. So, a third of your life is pretty much over when you drink. So I love that and I'd love to hear, of course, I'm on the other side, but is your wife still not drinking?
Yeah. We did it together. And I'll tell anyone, like, if you are going to go down this path, getting someone that you can do it with is so important
Yeah.
because the reality, your friend group is going to change. That is one of the things. I don't know if that surprised me, Peggy, but it
Mhm.
was something that was a reality that I wasn't expecting. And I was a little sad about, but
Mhm.
it was just the reality of it. So I lost
Well,
some
what about the
friends.
people that are scared of losing that, Ken? Losing their best friends.
Yeah, here's what I'll tell you. That's a real question, Jeff, and I got to be honest with you. Like I'm still working through it today, but I will tell you that the reason I lost friends though, and this may not be for everybody, but the
Mhm.
reason I lost friends wasn't because they didn't want to hang out with me anymore. It was because I recognized I didn't really want to hang out with them anymore. I had
Well,
changed.
yeah,
That's
and
so
when you're
interesting.
I'm sorry, Jeff, and I'll let you go
You're
after
good.
me, of course. But you know what's so interesting? That's true because if you're with people that drink, they're altered. It doesn't mean they're bad or good. It
Hmm.
has nothing to do with that. But if we are sober, we connect on
Right.
an energy level. We actually connect. Our brains connect. Our bodies connect. But if somebody's even a couple glasses of wine, you don't have the ability to connect because you're not connected, and that
Yeah.
gets boring.
100%.
I you just kind of hit home when you said that, Ken, because I have a couple of buddies that I drifted from because they were no longer they weren't what we were was drinking buddies, and then it was
Yep.
like, "No, you're no longer giving me what now I'm free to want in my life and free to what I wanted to pursue." It opened so many doors that I saw. I didn't think about it at the time, but I guess I saw them as no. That's a dead end road.
Hmm.
I want to go where I can take off and grow.
That's it. It's almost like, and I'm. It's weird, and I feel. I don't think I don't feel bad, but it's just reality. Where I've grown in the last 4 years, I tell people, and I wrote an article about this. Stopping drinking allowed me to really grow up. I mean, I stopped drinking. I was 38 years old. There were still a lot of things I did when I was 38 that was it was very immature when I look at it now at 4 years later, and it allowed me to grow mentally. So I'm at a place of the things I want to do and the things that I want to spend time doing. When I try to do that with my former friends, they just don't want to do it. Like they want to do the same thing we've been doing for the past 10 years as
Right.
friends. And I'm like, guys, do you not? There's more out there in the world than going to the same bar every Friday and Saturday night. But that's what they want to do. And God bless them. There's nothing wrong with that. But for me, I just want more.
Yeah.
So that was the reason we just kind of parted ways.
Yeah. I love that. I want more. And that if anybody asked me, that's exactly. I mean, I wanted more, you know?
You made me realize, Ken, that the score of the game was different every Sunday, but it was the same location, and it was basically
The same thing.
it was the same. That was a little bit of a slap to the face of, oh, that's a painful truth. But yeah,
Well,
the
that's the
jerseys were different colors, but the score, but it was the same thing.
well, you have heard, maybe you guys have heard the because we say this in the staffing industry when you meet someone and they're like, oh, I got 20 years of experience, and we say, well, you got 20 years of experience doing the exact same thing. So you don't really have that
Yeah,
doesn't mean anything. Like you've done the
Right.
same job for 20 years, so you haven't
I
really
love it.
grown.
I
So
love
in what alcohol
That's a
does, and for
beautiful analogy.
it
yeah,
is.
it's Groundhog Day. You're doing the same thing over and over and over. And there's like my wife and I now we joke because when we used to, so we were fortunate that we drink well, we were together for a couple.
Mhm.
So we had about a year, 18 months, 2 year period that we drink. And in the last 4 years, we've been sober, right? Together. And so we've been on both sides. And so we've taken trips together and all this stuff. And we always laugh about all the crazy stuff we did when we were drinking and that we don't even remember some of our trips. So we
Exactly.
we go back to places that we've already been to before because it's a completely different trip that we're sober. It's not even the same in the same
No, I know. I just got back
stratosphere.
from Hawaii, and again, sunsets and sunrises. Both of
Love it.
them. It's so
Um,
awesome. It's
yeah.
so
I mean,
awesome.
Your life is completely different. There's no doubt
Yeah.
about it. And for me, when I wrote Bamboozled, and once again, it's not to say you shouldn't drink.
Mhm.
Bamboozle's purpose is to say, I want to make sure you know the science around how alcohol affects you and what
Mhm.
you're giving up every time you make the decision to do it. So that's why I use the term alcohol conscious. Just like someone would be health conscious if they don't eat fried foods or they don't drink sugary drinks. Alcohol consciousness is around saying, hey, I don't have a problem with alcohol. I'm not addicted to it, but I recognize that it's not really serving me. So therefore, I choose not to drink it.
You know,
Yeah,
my problem though is I looked at drinking as the few hours that's all I thought the price was, because it was like
Mm,
in the morning, that was another time. I wasn't drinking then, so I didn't equate the two. But I looked, and for those couple hours, it was actually a fun time. I didn't realize I chose the buzz to look at of alcohol. What I didn't look at is, no, you're still dealing with it the next day because you're not doing this and that, or contributing or whatever where you want to go. So it is still affecting your life
a lot.
well into the next day.
I can't wait to read your book. One of the questions I have is because one of the things I see, in the world I'm in, um, is is that you have a partner that does drink. Do you have any advice around that for people, that because that's one of the hardest things I see
Yeah.
out there right now, is when one person decides to stop drinking, and because relationships change. You changed, you grew together with your wife.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
mm,
Peggy, I got to be honest. That is outside of my level of
okay.
expertise.
Somebody
Because
to-
it is like one of the reasons it was so quote unquote easy for me was
Mhm.
because of my wife. Because when you
Yeah.
first stop drinking, you all both of you know as well as I do, you're going to have a lot of free time on your hands, and there's going to be
Mhm.
some things you just cannot do. Like going to a
Right.
bar is not a good idea. Like it's just
Right.
not. So you need someone that you can do it with and that you can trust and want to do it with you. So for someone that doesn't have that, man, it's gonna be
It is tough.
challenging.
It is tough.
There's no doubt about it. But
And
I
that's
don't
a
I
whole
don't know.
that's a great topic, because I mean I hear that all the time. Especially, Ken, you had a spouse or a partner that's going with you, but
Yeah.
others,
Yeah,
maybe
my
they're
husband can take it or leave it. So, I mean, he probably drinks about 4 times a year, and so
Oh wow.
a beer, right? So it's been,
That's
pretty easy
crazy.
for
So
me.
he's basically a non-drinker though, Peggy. If he
Yeah,
drinks 4 times a year, which you
yeah.
know what's
I
an
mean,
interesting stat is 60% of people in the United States drink less than a bottle of beer a year. 60%. Like
yeah.
we
I
hear the
love
concept of
that.
you hear the concept of normal drinker and you're thinking, oh, all these people are able to drink as much as they want and they don't have a problem. But most people either drink or they don't drink. When
Exactly.
you drink consistently, that is when you put yourself at risk. So the CDC says the moderate drinker is 1 to 2 drinks a day, right? That will put 1 to 2 drinks a day, just one drink a day, 7 drinks a week, put you in a 30th percentile, top 30th percentile of all drinkers in the United States. And if you drink 2 drinks a day, which would be 14 drinks a week, that puts you in the top 80th percentile.
Mhm.
So you
Did you hear
drink
what
more than
Canada just did?
80%. Say it again.
Did you hear what Canada just did?
No, what did
Canada's
it?
their recommendation for alcohol intake is 2 drinks a week.
Wow, yeah. That
Anything
that
other than 2 drinks a week, they're saying is, and we know the science. The science is actually, I had a husband who almost kicked me out of the house. So he he made a complete turnaround because he didn't have an issue with alcohol, so he didn't understand that someone else could.
mm,
But once he read William Porter, Alcohol
yeah,
Explained. So I can't wait to get your book because I know he'll really like that too. Is that once you learn the science, you can't unknow it.
it's there. It's there.
It's
Ken,
And
there.
now there's
tell us
studies
about
now
your
saying that no amount of alcohol is actually
It's true. I
good
mean,
for you.
William Porter says
Zero.
that. Yeah,
Zero
0.
percent.
Well,
what
and
is
again,
go
I
ahead.
know I'm going way off the rails here too, but I just read a thing because I'm a social worker around fetal alcohol syndrome disorder, And the issue, and also, you know who Andrew Huberman is, Dr.
Yeah, of
Andrew
course.
Huberman?
That's my
Yeah,
guy, man. I listen to him every morning
he's my
podcast.
California Stanford man.
Yes.
Is that people don't understand how dangerous alcohol is. I'm not trying to preach to people, but it is fat and water soluble, so it gets everywhere. Like other drugs don't get into every freaking cell in your body, but alcohol does that. So, I had to talk with my son who's just got married because he wants to have kids, and he's like, "Mom, I don't need to know that about it." Well, you do. You need to know. Because it's an unspoken thing that's happening in the U.S. is all over the world is people drinking when they're pregnant. So.
Mm.
Ken, tell us about Bamboozled. What is the book? Is it your story? Is it a help? What's the book about?
So it's broken up into 3 parts. So the first part is, why do you drink? So that's the question that it asks. So it's around going through the science of alcohol. So I started at the very beginning. So chapter 1 walks you through the actual history of alcohol. Like, where did alcohol come from?
Yeah.
Like, and then why did it become such a big thing that we do all the time? We talk a little bit about prohibition, and then we just walk through the whole evolution of alcohol and how it got to the place that is kind of accepted by society today. And then we walk through all the subtle ways that we are socially engineered from almost birth to drink. So we talk about television, we talk about commercials, we talk about parties that you go to when you're younger.
Christenings, baby showers.
Christenings, exactly. Like, what does those have to do with drinking? Like a
Disney on Ice.
Everything.
Disney on
Alcohol
Ice.
is everywhere. And the big thing I really lean into is around television, because if you look at the media in Hollywood, and I know that if you compare it to cigarettes, which is definitely a cancer causing and so bad, and they outlawed it 40, 50 years ago. And then I hope one day they look at alcohol the way that we now look at cigarettes. They ban that because it affects people's behavior. Seeing people smoke in movies and all the advertising, it affects kids and it affects adults. If you look at movies today and you look at series today, you will be hard pressed to find very many movies or shows that doesn't have alcohol being used in a very casual manner. Give you an example. Watch television, and how many times are people sitting down for dinner and the dad is drinking a beer and the mom is having a glass of wine? All the time. Does that really happen? Do people every night drink wine? Like, some people maybe do, but as I shared with you a minute ago, 60% of people in the United States don't drink less than 1 bottle of beer a week. So why does in movies they always make it seem like they are drinking? It's not realistic. And then it shows that the other aspect is how they never show the consequences. Like, you won't see someone get like every now and then they'll show someone gets drunk, but you'll have Sherlock Holmes, Robert Downey Jr., who is drinking all he wants to, and then the next minute he's as socially aware as the smartest person in the room. Doesn't work that way. So it's like they show this dramatized version of alcohol that's not true, and they don't show the consequences of how alcohol affects you. So we talk around that, and we just really want to dispel the dichotomy of either you can be an alcoholic or you're fine. Like, that's how it is, right? It's very stratified. It's one or the other. That's not true. It is a very much of a spectrum. And for most people, as I shared before, and if you drink consistently, it's going to definitely catch up to you. So we talk about so that's part 1. And then part 2 is walking around. It's talking more around, like, how do you get rid of it? How do you get rid of it? Like, what are you supposed to do? What are the different things you can do to really, like, I have this concept called the meds that really walks through, like, how my personal philosophy of how you can get rid of drinking. Peggy, I think you had a question. Go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to tell you, because now I'm going to lose it. This Catherine Chapman Pope said, "I'm nodding my head so much at Ken that I think it might pop off and roll across the floor." Keep going. I just want you to keep going. I just wanted you to hear that comment. That was awesome.
No worries. So then it talks about, what are the different aspects? Why do we drink? And then so first part is, why do we drink? Then the second part is, what do you have to gain from not drinking? And that's something that I put in the book, what I call alcohol parables. And what the parables are is that we talk about different aspects of how your life can improve. So we talk about finances, we talk about relationships, we talk about health, we talk about your career. There's a few other things I think we talk about as well. And what we really do is we talk about the way alcohol affects that negatively, subtly, not like your bottom of the barrel, your hit rock bottom, but just like you don't recognize how small things add up to big things. And then we tell stories. Typically, it's two people in which they started out on the same trajectory, and then they get to a fork in the road. And one decides to keep drinking, and the other decides to stop drinking. And then we look at how their lives diverge and where they end up.
That is beautiful.
So it can really show you. And like I said, none of them will be considered alcoholics, but some of them eventually get there with time. But it really shows you when you make it like it, you can get to a point in your life where you have to make a decision. What are you going to do in that decision? And then the last part, we talk about how do you take back your life? And that's where my concept of the meds, MEDS, I walk people through my philosophy and then how they could potentially, hopefully, make it a lot easier to not be addicted to drinking or take drinking out of their life.
You know, something that the comparison is such a great tool, but so wrongly used when compared to Frank in hypothetical on where we live. I don't have a problem. He's a mess. So when I look at him compared to him, my life is great. But what I had to do was I had to compare me to what me could be.
Exactly.
I had to compare me to a me that wasn't drinking, a me that was living up to his potential. Because if I compared myself to Frank down, under the bench, I don't have a problem. My life is great. But when I looked and said, Jeff, are you getting to where you deserve to go, where you could go, where you want to go? When I saw that was a reflection I didn't want to look at.
That's it. 100%. I love it. And so I tell people, so the meds, just to give you guys the full view of it, is something I put together. It stands for mechanical engineering. So mental engineering, because I think it starts here first. Like most of the times, and very similar to Annie Grace, I believe the same thing. I tell people, when you first start thinking about drinking, don't stop drinking. Keep drinking. But what you should do is start educating yourself on how drinking affects you. And because you're still drinking, look and see, are these things really happen? To your point earlier, Jeff, when you were talking about alcohol, you thought alcohol was that 2-hour period. It was amazing that I didn't make the connection that when I woke up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, randomly every night, that it was because of alcohol. I didn't make that connection. It was insane that I didn't make that connection.
I spent thousands on sleep, never thinking it was the alcohol.
Never thinking it. So when you educate yourself on it, then you'd have time to see, is it happening to you? And once you recognize that these things are happening, that it's a little like you don't know why, but man, you can't really think as quick as you did the other day, or you don't know why, but man, you're a little more irritable than you usually are. And then you connect it to, all right, the book said I was going to do this and I'm feeling this. Is this the alcohol? Then you can make the decision to say, okay, I'm going to give this a break because I know I've been conscious of what it feels like. Now I want to give it up and be conscious of what it doesn't feel like.
That's great.
So that's the first step. Second is exercise commitment. And this is my personal belief that for a lot of people, there's 2 reasons exercise commitment is important. One, when you first stop drinking, you're going to have a lot of time. Like we all know, like when you just forget how much time, you don't have any concept of how much time you waste drinking. So you're going to have a lot of time on your hands and you're going to have something to do with it. Nothing better to do than exercise to kill some of that time. So that can be one aspect of it. The other aspect of it, exercise is scientifically proven to reduce cravings. You want to get that dopamine spike that you get from alcohol, that artificial one. It's going to be really hard to create that naturally, but exercise comes close, or it will get you closer there to get you that dopamine. So it reduces cravings. And I personally believe when you make a change in your life, seeing the external change of maybe if you're a little overweight or exercise helps in so many ways, it can help you. You can see it. it helps with the internal change as well. It's like an external motivator because you
Oh,
feel like
yeah.
you're changing on the inside, but if you can really see it and someone's like, man, your skin looks amazing today, or man, have you lost 10 pounds? It's going to make you want to continue to be on that path. The third thing for D is diet improvement. And the thing about diet is that you can exercise all you want, but if you're eating crap,
Right.
you ain't going to see no change. So I would say you got to eat good, feel good, eat well, feel better. And then the last one, and this is the most important one, and this is the one, if you don't do, you got to do mental re-engineering. But the last one is even more important than exercise and diet put together, but it is success seeking. And the reason I say success seeking is because when you stop drinking, I personally feel like you're giving yourself a gift. You're giving yourself a gift that a lot of people unfortunately never realize or haven't realized yet. And you can do so many amazing things now that you're more cognitively aware than you were before. So Peggy, as you were saying earlier, you were doing that lesson plan or you were doing your project and you were like amazed at how easy it was for you. If there was the drinking, Peggy, there's no way you'd have been able to do it. So now, because you're not drinking, that governor's been removed, and the level of ability, the things you can accomplish, there's no ceiling. And for some people, and I'm just going to be honest here, after you stop drinking for, let's say, 12 to 18 months, initially it's like this. Everything's great. You're like, man, my life is better. Everything's fantastic. My everything, like I can think better. I'm clear. But with anything, we get to a point in which it levels off because it becomes a norm. It's homeostasis, right? And it doesn't feel like anything is going on or anything is changing, even though you are still changing, but it feels pretty normal. It can feel humdrum. For some people, when that happens, then they think, well, I can go back to drink because I feel good now. And I think I got it under control and my life's not really amazing. It's kind of regular. So I'm gonna go back to drinking. So success seeking is you give yourself some goal, some North Star that you're going to push that you would have never been able to do in your previous self. So for me, it was learn Korean. My wife is Korean. I want to be able to speak to her parents well. So I said, I'm going to learn Korean because I knew the pre-drinking Ken Middleton, there's no way I would have the mental ability to learn Korean. But now that I had taken that governor off and I knew that my mind could do things that it couldn't before, it gave me that 3 to 5 year goal to say, I want to learn Korean. So for drinking, you like when you stop drinking, you start like initially it's like this, it starts to level off, but the change is still happening. You're still growing. And so by giving yourself a long-term goal and something that you're pushing for that's really, really hard and requires a long time, it'll give you that focus to say, I can never go back because I have so much. Jeff, I think you made a great analogy. I think about the wallet earlier that I thought was amazing, right? Jeff, you share that wallet analogy because I don't want to steal that from you because that was yours and I love it.
No. But what we were talking about was giving us a reason at the end of the day because willpower wears off. It's energy, and by the end of the day, I'm tired. I have less
limited.
What's that?
It's time limited.
It's time limited. I wanted to give myself as much of a reason to not drink at the end of the day. And the analogy I used with Ken was if I'm walking down the street and I have no money in my wallet and someone comes up and says, give me your money, take it. I don't care. That's how I felt at the end of the day. If I had not done the things, if I had not gotten up and showered and brushed my teeth and exercised and put in a hard day work and reached out and made the phone calls to people. When I do those things at the end of the day, I've got a wallet full of money. And I don't want to lose that. I'm going to put up a fight when alcohol comes knocking at 5 o'clock and says, I want your sobriety. I don't want to give that up because now I have something of value worth fighting for. And that was when I was at 5 o'clock wearing the same clothes I slept in. I got nothing to lose. I haven't given myself enough of a reason. So it was through the day where if I exercised and did these things, I don't want to throw that away. I got something. It gave me enough it became enough to get me through the times when willpower maybe didn't have enough for me.
Yeah. And once you put enough, so through success seeking and by having that 3 to 5 year goal that you're working hard towards, you're putting enough dollars, you're putting dollars in your wallet every day, every day, every day.
Mhm.
And then eventually you're going to say, am I willing to give up my wallet, all this work that I've done to reach this goal? So I say, your sobriety is a gift. Use it to do amazing things because you have the capability to do amazing things. And that's where success seeking comes into play.
So I've got stuff going along the bottom, but when is the book coming out? When can we get copies? Because obviously this is going to be huge. How do we get it?
So thebamboozlebook.com is the website. So go to the website. We are releasing a digital version in late February, early March. At least that's what my publisher is telling me. Hopefully that works out. And then we're going to release the physical version in August of 2020 of this year, 2023.
Okay.
So I just released today, as a matter of fact, one of the chapters. So if you go to thebamboozled.com, thebamboozledbook.com, you can actually read one of the chapters, one of what we call College Days and Haze, which talks about college and how we learn drinking in college and how it affects us so much longer after college. And so you can read that today. But yeah, we're coming out February, March, and then in August, it'll be in all bookstores wherever they're sold.
Awesome.
Well, I tell you, that's huge. We'll definitely have you back when it's out.
Yeah,
but
awesome.
We'll look for that. Ken, thanks so much. Hang on. Stay on the line for a few.
Thank you so much. Wow.
Thank you, guys. It's been awesome, man.
Incredible.
I love doing these things. I'm a little sleepy. It's 9:46 here on the East Coast. This is my bedtime, but it's well worth it to hang out with Peggy and Jeff.
It was really worth having you, boy.
Sounds good. Well, we've got another forensic Vance Rowe on next week, so that'll be a lot of fun as well. But Ken, thanks so much for being here. Fantastic, and stick around. And we will talk to. He doesn't even. Ken, you're too young to know this song.
Who is this?
Welcome Back, Cotter.
Oh.
You were see your age is showing through. You're making up. John Travolta's first acting gig was a show that was on right after Happy Days. But all right, everyone, have a great one, and we will talk soon. Take care,
everybody.